Hey folks, and welcome to CarStarz' 10 Cool Facts about Marty's 85 Toyota SR5 pickup in the 1985 to 1990 Back to the Future trilogy. Fact number 1. There were two 1985 Toyota SR5 extra cab pickup trucks used throughout the trilogy to fill the role as Marty's dream truck. Oddly, the acquisition of the first film's truck is not firmly established in the public record. So, there is no widely documented story suggesting a private owner leased it in, or a dealer account describing a straight-up purchase, or if it was just pulled from Universal's lot. That makes the first truck's beginning a bit unusual from the start, and the rest of its story is even more offbeat, as we'll get into the details of a bit later on. It is famous on screen, instantly recognizable, and deeply tied to the identity of the first film, yet its actual sourcing remains far less publicly documented than its later double stand-in truck that followed it. The sequel film's truck's sourcing is much clearer and straightforward. The truck used in both the Part 2 and Part 3 films was originally purchased by a private owner, then leased to Universal for use in the sequels. That means the second truck, at least, we know did not start life as some mysterious studio asset sitting in a backlot fleet somewhere. It began as someone's real personal truck, then briefly stepped into one of the biggest film trilogies ever made simply because it was available and suitable for the production's needs. So, both were mostly basic production vehicles gathered to fill a role, and in the sequel truck's case anyway, one of them came straight out of regular private ownership before briefly passing through Universal's hands in momentary stardom. That gives the truck's origin a grounded quality that fits the story well. The pickup that became a dream object on screen began as a real, usable Toyota in the ordinary world, and that contrast is what gives the sourcing story its appeal. Fact number 2. Both screen trucks were powered by Toyota's 2.4-liter 22RE inline 4 that was rated at 116 net horsepower, which gave Marty's black SR5 a very different kind of appeal than people often assume. The truck appeared bold and aggressive on screen, but under the hood it was running a compact and all-stock, fuel-injected 4-cylinder, so not big power, but then again, a light pickup doesn't need a whole lot of power to be plenty peppy. The solid and proven engine was efficient for the class, dependable, and built around usable power instead of bragging rights. That gave the pickup a solid identity that fit Marty and the trilogy quite well. The 22RE also represented an important point in time in Toyota pickup truck history in general, because the newly available fuel injection system gave the SR5 a more modern mechanical profile than older, less efficient carbureted setups associated with previous model compact trucks. Its power delivery was never about speed. The strength of the 22RE came from its reputation for surviving hard use and delivering steady, useful performance and efficiency in a small four-wheel drive truck. That helps explain why Marty's pickup feels so grounded, even with all its on-screen flair. The engine is something a real buyer in 1985 would have wanted. The proven engine was paired to a 5-speed manual, backed by solid 4-wheel drive hardware, which gave it a hands-on personality that no automatic could have matched. A stick shift changed the whole character of the truck and was an intentional choice by the director. It turned the SR5 from a stylish compact pickup into something you had to work, shifting through the gears, balancing engine revs, and providing more action for the cameras. The engine gave the truck credibility, but the manual transmission gave it attitude. Together, the 22RE and 5-speed combo created a pickup that felt tough, youthful, and believably desirable for its time. Fact number 3. The SR5 trim sat near the top of Toyota's pickup options packages, which gave it a very specific identity inside the 4th-generation Hilux truck family. This wasn't the stripped work truck version aimed at pure utility alone. SR5 meant a more polished, more desirable pickup, one that still had the toughness of Toyota's compact trucks, but added real comfort and style inside. Instead of bare-bones basics, buyers got features like special reclining bucket seats, a center console with armrest, fuller door trim, cut pile carpeting, and a more complete gauge cluster with a tachometer and extra readouts that made the cab feel far more upscale. In the 1983 to 1988 4th-generation series, that blend helped the SR5 stand apart. It was still a small, durable truck, but it also felt like something you could proudly dream about owning, not just something you bought to get work done. At this point, Toyota's compact pickups had fully developed into serious 4-wheel drive machines with a broader mainstream appeal, yet 1985 still preserved one old-school feature that later became legendary, the solid front axle. In the American market anyway, that made the 1985 truck the last of its kind before Toyota switched to independent front suspension for the next model year. That puts the 1985 SR5 in a very narrow and important slot inside the fourth-generation Hilux pickup series. It belongs to the generation that modernized the Hilux formula, while also being the final year of a front-end design many off-road enthusiasts still treat as the toughest Toyota setup of all. Another strong point about the SR5 in this generation is how well it captured the shape and proportion of the mid-80s Hilux at its peak. In North America, these trucks were sold simply as Toyota pickups, but they were still part of the global fourth-generation Hilux story. In extra cab form, the truck gained extra space behind the seats without losing the compact footprint that defined the series. That made it look sharper and feel more versatile at the same time. Within the fourth generation, the SR5 Extra Cab became one of the clearest examples of Toyota understanding exactly where the compact truck market was headed. It still had the size and simplicity of an old-school pickup, but it also offered the comfort, polished appearance, and presence buyers were beginning to expect from a truck they wanted to enjoy from day to day, not just purely a workhorse only. Fact number 4. Taking a look at the mods that made Marty's SR5 stand out from the crowd. The truck sat up on a more aggressive-looking wheel and tire package, which was just slightly bigger than stock tires actually, specifically a size of 31 by 10.50 R15 Goodyear Wrangler radials on US brand steel wheels. It's important to note here that contrary to popular belief, the truck's suspension was indeed stock and did not have a lift kit installed. That subtle stance change alone made the compact Toyota look tougher, broader, and more rugged than a showroom fresh pickup on standard road tires. Nothing about the truck felt impossible or overbuilt. It looked like the kind of machine that a teenager could stare at through a dealership window and obsess over easily, much in the same way Marty did when he first saw it up on the flatbed. The bumper setup was a big part of the truck's visual transformation, because those were certainly not stock Toyota pieces. They were, in fact, aftermarket Smitty-built brand double-tube bumpers. That detail gives the truck a much more authentic custom truck feel because it shows the look was built with real period off-road parts, not one-off movie fabrication. The tube bumpers changed the whole shape of the SR5, especially at the nose, where the front end suddenly looked beefier, tougher, and more aggressive than a factory pickup. They also fit perfectly with the rest of the add-on hardware because the truck was not supposed to feel luxurious or fancy. It was supposed to feel like the ultimate mid-80s go-anywhere 4x4. The add-on lighting setup is another extra touch showing that Marty's truck was built up for personalized off-roading purposes instead of just a standard new SR5 pickup. The front end carried auxiliary KC brand driving lights, and the sport bar behind the cab added another row of overhead KC lights, giving the truck that unmistakable mid-80s trail truck profile. The combo of aftermarket bumpers and plentiful add-on off-road lighting finished out the tough and ready for action appeal nicely. Fact number 5. There were a number of noticeable differences and inconsistencies between the original film truck, which I'll refer to going forward as Truck A, and the second truck, which I'll refer to as Truck B, to keep things easier to follow. Truck A was the bit richer looking truck of the two with some extra accessories that the later Truck B didn't have, as it carried tinted windows, a tonneau cover over the bed, Toyota lettering on the tailgate, and the nicer, more exclusive SR5 bucket seats. Those small details made Truck A seem a little more upscale, like the quintessential version of a fresh custom black SR5 that a teenager could dream about in 1985. Truck B was built up just close enough to preserve the fantasy, but did not exactly match all the same niceties. Those subtle differences are some of the easiest ways to tell them apart at a glance anyway. Truck A had a more finished rear-end presentation, helped by the aforementioned bed cover and tailgate graphic that gave it a sharper, more showroom-ready profile. Truck B lost those for some reason. I suppose by the time you get to the later sequel material, Truck B just looks a little more like a more seasoned 4x4 that has been pressed into carrying that fantasy forward while losing some of the finer details along the way, which certainly happens over the ownership of a pickup normally, but of course in this case, these discrepancies don't maintain proper continuity in the context of the film, since Marty had just received the truck new in the film's timeline. So, Truck B certainly wasn't a perfect visual copy of the more factory-fresh appeal of Truck A, but was just enough to satisfy casual viewers and irritate hardcore Back to the Future fans at the same time. Another small and quite odd unexplained continuity error that quietly separates Truck A from Truck B on screen is the license plate. Truck A carried California plate 2EZP916, while Truck B wore 2BAK860, so even though the black SR5 Fantasy stayed visually consistent to most viewers, the production did not preserve the same registration plate number across both vehicles. That is the kind of tiny continuity shift casual audiences never notice, but once you do catch it, it becomes one more clue that a different truck was carrying the roll forward rather than simply being the original truck again. It also adds a bizarre little wrinkle to the truck's screen identity. The dream stayed the same, but one of the easiest literal markers that changed was the plate for some reason. Fact number 6. So, what happened to the original film truck that prevented it from being used in the sequel films, you ask? Well, Truck A had one of the strangest afterlives of any movie vehicle in the trilogy because it did not simply disappear into a studio storage spot once filming ended. It instead was pulled into a joint promotional program involving California Raisins, Toyota, and Universal Studios, and then ultimately raffled off after filming. That gives Truck A an unusual place in movie car history. The first black SR5 that burned itself into people's minds as Marty McFly's dream pickup did not retire as a protected Hollywood relic. It was actually turned into a contest prize and sent back out into the world, but that wasn't the end of its story quite yet. What happened next is the part that still stings fans today. The individual who actually won Truck A was involved in a bad crash not long after taking delivery of it, and the truck was destroyed. That abrupt ending gives the whole story a harsh finality. The first and nicest version of Marty's pickup didn't even survive long enough to get a chance to become a collector legend, because its life after the film was cut short almost immediately. It also explains why Truck B was sourced and brought in to finish out the sequel films with. Once the original was obliterated, production had no choice but to go find another 1985 SR5 pickup to customize up and carry the roll forward. That means the first truck that most people remember best had the shortest real-world life. A dream truck on screen, a raffle prize post-production, and then sadly and suddenly killed off brutally. Fact number 7. The everlasting appeal of Marty's cool custom Toyota pickup was made very apparent by Toyota's 2015 anniversary campaign. It used a modern-day interpretation of Marty's truck built into a new Tacoma pickup as the emotional doorway and their new futuristic hydrogen-powered Mirai car as the modern message. Toyota made this a pretty big deal and formally tied the promotion to the film's 30th anniversary and to October 21st, 2015, the famous future date from Part 2. Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd reunited for the campaign, and Bob Gale publicly supported the collaboration, which gave the whole thing more legitimacy than a cheap nostalgia grab for profit. Toyota understood exactly what image would hit people first. It was not the DeLorean, it was Marty's black pickup, the reward at the end of the story, the thing that felt attainable and real in a way the Time Machine never did. The campaign played to that memory perfectly, then ultimately pivoted into Toyota's future-facing Mirai. The truck Toyota built for the campaign was a fan-pleasing modern-day tribute, not a lazy copy. They started with a new model 2016 Tacoma and then reshaped it into as close as a replica to Marty's dream SR5 as possible. The build included the same off-road inspiration, TRD wheels, similar custom tubular bumpers front and rear, a custom light bar, KC Highlights gravity LED lamps, a custom tailgate with Toyota lettering, D4S badging to echo the old fuel injection identity, and even mud flaps. So it was pretty much all of the same mods made to Marty's original truck, but done with the present-day version of the pickup and modern equivalent parts. That is why the tribute worked so well for the promo effort. Toyota did not just say, "Remember that old Toyota pickup from Back to the Future?" They recreated the stance, silhouette, and attitude that made Marty's original custom pickup feel so unforgettable. Toyota also handled the rollout with more ambition than most anniversary tie-ins ever get. On Back to the Future Day, they used the tribute truck in public-facing appearances in Los Angeles, New York, and Dallas, which turned it into a traveling event piece instead of something hidden behind a press curtain. They also displayed it alongside the Mirai and the Gullwing concept at the West Hollywood launch activity, then to SEMA, where it could connect with the enthusiast crowd that would appreciate all the visual callbacks. That gave the truck a second job beyond pure nostalgia. It became a bridge between movie memory and showroom marketing. Toyota was not just celebrating an old film prop, they were presenting a new model Tacoma through the unmistakable image of the original 1985 SR5 that made Marty's truck so popular in the first place. Fact number 8. The sequel film's truck almost had a worse fate than the original truck, depending on how you look at it. Truck B's post-filming story took a sharp turn almost immediately after it was returned to its original owner in California. Not long after Universal gave it back, the truck was stolen. That alone is jarring because it pulls the black Toyota straight out of movie mythology and drops it into unknown circumstances. Just a few days later, police got in touch with the rightful owner and the truck was recovered. That first theft says a lot about the unfortunate path that Truck B was going down. It was not being treated like a sacred Hollywood artifact. It was simply out in the world as a desirable Toyota pickup, exposed to the same risks as any other nice truck on the street. That grounded reality gives the story its first bite right from the start, but this truck's luck takes an even wilder detour next. The second time it was stolen, yes, the second time, was more substantial and far stranger than the first. By that point, Truck B had passed to another owner, and when it vanished again, this time it stayed lost for several weeks. Then came the call to the owner that nobody expected. The Mexican police had located the truck around the Tijuana area. What they told the owner next was quite unsettling to him, but it's a significant part of the account tied to the truck's history. When the owner inquired about the condition of the truck, the police stated that the pickup had a few dents and dings, but they had successfully removed all of the drugs hidden throughout it. That means Truck B had apparently been pulled into narcotics trafficking and seized as part of a drug sting. For a vehicle known to audiences as Marty McFly's dream truck, that is an incredibly dark and peculiar situation, turning a movie star vehicle into the center of a cross-border crime story. The recovery process exposed the depth of just how deliberately the truck had been tampered with. The thieves had even removed the VIN tag from the dashboard and replaced it with a different one, an obvious attempt to disguise the truck's identity and make it harder to trace. That kind of change goes far beyond casual theft. It shows real effort to bury the vehicle's origin. Even so, the pickup still carried identifying numbers in other locations, and those were enough to confirm what it actually was. Once that was sorted out, California issued a replacement VIN tag so the truck could be legally identified once again. That final detail gives the whole episode an extra layer of grit. Truck B was not just stolen and recovered, it came back with the scars of a full identity wipe attempt. Fact number 9. Truck B eventually ended up on Craigslist at one point, despite it not looking much like its former self anymore, as it had some poorly done mods like non-original seats, a lift, and a bad respray job by then. However, amazingly, the owner at the time still had all of the original documentation with it from its film use days. The truck was sold to a buyer, then later resold again to a mega Back to the Future collector who sought out a shop by the name of Greg's Restorations in Rutland, Massachusetts. In 2013, they began a very extensive and downright obsessive nut and bolt restoration that took it all the way down to bare metal and rebuilt it with the goal of essentially turning it back into a brand new 1985 Toyota pickup once again. The truck actually wasn't in too bad of shape considering its rough past. It still had a strong and straight frame and very little rust as well. The frame and body were fully stripped and refinished, the body was repaired where needed, and even the bed floor and inner panels were redone. The whole approach was very pure, but very demanding as well. This was no replica build, it was Marty's actual black screen-used Toyota SR5 pickup and had to be restored back to just as it had once been before. The original interior had been torn out, plastic trim had been swapped around, the dash incomplete and discolored, and of course the original seats were gone as previously mentioned. Since the day of being able to buy all of these important parts brand new was long gone, the shop purchased a separate parts truck and harvested whatever correct components they needed. The door panels were cleaned and restored, the seats had to be reupholstered with handmade covers stitched to match the original look as closely as possible, and the original wiring harness even had to be refurbished instead of tossed aside for something newer and easier, since it too needed to be an original part and could not be bought new. Bolts, brackets, and other hardware were even refinished by hand in shop and reused where possible. That kind of extreme focus to detail says everything about the whole restoration. They were not just restoring a random black Toyota pickup in a general sense, they knew they were reviving a legendary film truck and carried it out with a deep passion. Today, more than a decade later, Truck B is still as fresh as can be and lives in a very fitting and cushy place, that being at the famous 88 miles per hour Time Machine Collection in Hubbardston, Massachusetts. That is what makes its current home so special. It is not parked off in some random museum alongside unrelated movie props or stuffed in someone's garage rarely seeing the light of day. Instead, it lives in good company inside an incredible collection built specifically around Back to the Future history. The owner's collection has grown over the years into multiple buildings, and the tours are reservation-based, which makes the whole experience feel more like entering a private vault than walking through a generic exhibit hall. For a truck that is so tied to one of the most detail-obsessed fan bases on Earth, ending up in a dedicated Back to the Future environment where everyone can enjoy it is oh too perfect. Fact number 10. Looking into the scale model world, since both the Back to the Future Trilogy and the Toyota Hilux pickup line have become so popular, they have quite a following behind them, so there have been a number of 85 Toyota pickup models produced in various scales by various manufacturers over the years. So, let's take a look at some of the best options we have currently available to get a quality scale replica of Marty's slick SR5 Toyota truck. As for diecast models, there is one standout direct replica of Marty's truck that any serious fan of the film pickup will want for sure. This well-detailed and officially licensed 1/18 scale 85 Toyota Hilux SR5 Back to the Future truck replica here released by a brand called Automobile last year is by far the best quality and sizable example that I have seen so far. This model is, for the most part, already out of retail circulation, but it can be had on eBay and some hobbyist sites for around the $200 mark. As for plastic model kits of a mid-1980s Toyota Extra Cab pickup, I didn't really find any that would be suitable for a replica build really, as most Toyota pickup model kits are based on older or newer models with quite different body styles, so best to stick to diecast in this case. But do let us know in the comments below if you know of any available kits that I may have missed. And speaking of more direct diecast replicas of Marty's truck, a while back, I quite unexpectedly stumbled across a really nice 1/64th scale one that I feel I should mention, both because it's the best replica of the truck that I have seen so far in this particular scale, and because it is really easy to miss it, as it is not labeled as anything Back to the Future related on its packaging, or even in most web listings oddly, probably to avoid licensing costs I would assume, but it's this Johnny Lightning release entitled 1985 SR5 Pickup Mystery Matinee, and it is a good one, folks. These are still on the retail market and can be had for around $18. I will put a link in the description below to where you can pick up one of these gems. By the way, folks, I have another film-related, and in similar format, YouTube channel called Mind Litter. If anyone is interested in hearing more about our favorite movies and TV shows beyond just the cars, such as other behind-the-scenes info, filming locations, and actor-related tidbits and such, I will put a link in the description below for those interested in checking it out. Well, there you have it, folks. Thanks for watching, and make sure to hit that subscribe button if you like what you saw here. You guys are all great. See you next time.